The Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther's, 95. Theses. The Protestant Reformation was a major movement in the 16th century that sought to reform the Roman Catholic Church and led to the establishment of Protestant churches. One of the most significant events that triggered this movement was the publication of Martin Luther's 95 Theses in 1517. This document, also known as Disputation on the Power and Efficacy of Indulgences, challenged the practices and doctrines of the Catholic Church and sparked a wave of religious, political, and cultural upheaval across Europe. In the early 16th century, the Catholic Church was the dominant religious institution in Western Europe. However, it faced widespread criticism for its corruption, greed, and moral decay. Many clergy members, including popes and bishops, were accused of living lavish lifestyles, engaging in simony, the selling of church offices, and exploiting the faithful for financial gain. One of the most controversial practices was the sale of indulgences. Indulgences were grants issued by the Church that promised the remission of temporal punishment for sins. Essentially, they were believed to reduce the time a soul would spend in purgatory before entering heaven. While the Church taught that indulgences could be earned through good works, prayer, and piety, they were increasingly sold for money. This practice was seen as a way for the Church to raise funds, particularly for large projects such as the construction of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Martin Luther was a German monk, theologian, and professor at the University of Wittenberg. Born in 1483 in Eisleben, Germany, Luther initially pursued a career in law before turning to a religious vocation. He joined the Augustinian order and was ordained as a priest in 1507. Luther's theological studies and his personal struggles with faith and salvation led him to question the teachings and practices of the Catholic Church. Luther was particularly troubled by the sale of indulgences and the notion that salvation could be bought. He believed that faith alone, sola fide, was the key to salvation, and that the Bible, sola scriptura, should be the ultimate authority in matters of faith and practice, rather than the traditions and teachings of the Church. On October 31st, 1517, Martin Luther famously nailed his 95 Theses to the door of the Castle Church in Wittenberg, Germany. This act is often seen as the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. The 95 Theses were written in Latin and intended for academic debate, but they quickly spread beyond the university and ignited a widespread movement for reform. Key points of the 95 Theses included: 1. Critique of indulgences. Luther argued that indulgences undermined the seriousness of repentance and contrition. He claimed that true repentance involved inner spiritual transformation, not just external acts or payments. 2. Authority of the Pope. Luther questioned the Pope's authority to grant indulgences, arguing that only God had the power to forgive sins. He criticized the Church for exploiting the faithful for financial gain. 3. Theology of salvation. Luther emphasized that salvation was a gift from God received through faith, not something that could be earned or purchased. He argued that the Church's emphasis on indulgences and good works distorted the true message of the gospel. Some of the specific theses that addressed these points include: Thesis 21. Thus, those indulgence preachers are in error who say that a man is absolved from every penalty and saved by papal indulgences. Thesis 27. They preach man who say that so soon as the penny jingles into the money box, the soul flies out of purgatory. Thesis 36. Any truly repentant Christian has a right to full remission of penalty and guilt, even without indulgence letters. Thesis 62. The true treasure of the Church is the most holy gospel of the glory and grace of God. Luther's 95 Theses were quickly translated into German and other languages, and they spread rapidly across Europe thanks to the recently invented printing press. The widespread distribution of the theses brought Luther's ideas to a much larger audience than he had initially intended and garnered significant support, particularly among those who were already critical of the Church. The dissemination of the 95 Theses and the subsequent debates they sparked led to a series of events that would profoundly reshape the religious landscape of Europe. Luther's challenge to the authority of the Pope and the church hierarchy was seen as a direct threat, leading to his eventual excommunication and the rise of Protestantism. In 1520, Pope Leo X issued a papal bull, Exsurge Domine, condemning Luther's teachings and giving him 60 days to recant. Luther refused to comply and instead publicly burned the bull. In 1521, he was summoned to the Diet of Worms, an imperial assembly convened by Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Luther, was asked to recant his writings but stood firm, famously declaring, "Here I stand, I can do no other." As a result, Luther was declared an outlaw and a heretic, and his works were banned. However, he found protection under Frederick the Wise, Elector of Saxony, who provided him refuge at Wartburg Castle. During his time in hiding, Luther translated the New Testament into German, making the Bible more accessible to the common people and further spreading his ideas. Luther's defiance and his ideas inspired many others across Europe to call for reform. Key figures such as Ulrich Zwingli in Switzerland, John Calvin in France, and John Knox in Scotland became leaders of the burgeoning Protestant movement. Different branches of Protestantism emerged, each with its own interpretations of Christian doctrine and practice. The Reformation led to significant changes in the religious, political, and cultural landscape of Europe. 1. Religious changes. The establishment of various Protestant denominations, including Lutheranism, Calvinism, and Anglicanism, challenged the religious monopoly of the Catholic Church. The Protestant emphasis on individual interpretation of the Bible and personal faith reshaped Christian worship and beliefs. 2. Political changes. The Reformation weakened the power of the Catholic Church and the papacy, leading to the rise of secular rulers and the consolidation of nation-states. The Peace of Augsburg, 1555, and the Treaty of Westphalia, 1648, granted legal recognition to Protestantism and allowed rulers to choose the religion of their territories. 3. Cultural changes. The Reformation had a profound impact on education, literacy, and the arts. The emphasis on reading the Bible in one's native language promoted literacy and the spread of ideas. Protestant values influenced the development of modern Western culture, including attitudes toward work, economics, and individualism. Counter-Reformation. In response to the Protestant Reformation, the Catholic Church initiated its own series of reforms known as the Counter-Reformation. The Council of Trent, 1545-1563, addressed many of the issues raised by reformers, including the sale of indulgences, clerical corruption, and the need for better education for priests. The Jesuits, a new religious order founded by Ignatius of Loyola, played a crucial role in revitalizing the Catholic Church through education, missionary work, and efforts to combat Protestantism. The Protestant Reformation was a watershed moment in the history of Christianity and Western civilization. It not only transformed the religious landscape of Europe, but also had far-reaching effects on politics, society, and culture. The ideas of the Reformation, particularly the emphasis on individual faith and the authority of the Scriptures, continue to influence Christian theology and practice today. Martin Luther's 95 Theses remain a powerful symbol of religious and intellectual dissent. They represent a pivotal moment when an individual's quest for spiritual truth challenged the established order and set in motion a movement that would change the course of history.